Hi, welcome to Black Sea, Conflicting Ambitions and Power Projections, Romed ISPI panel. I am Taha Özhan from Ankara Insitute, Turkey. The issue is lately hot as it's been followed by all the academics, think tanks, and the media, especially after the Russian invasion attempt of the Ukraine. For centuries, Black Sea has shaped geopolitics of Europe, Eurasia, and as well as influencing Anatolia and the Mediterranean. The Black Sea region could be defined as the land and seascape from Balkans to Caucasus, from Ukrainian-Russian steppe to Anatolia, is once again squarely within the field of European, Turkish, US, NATO, geopolitical and security scope. Either read the history of Black Sea geopolitics from 1774, treaty of Küçük Kaynarca, which provided Russia direct access to Black Sea region, or read Black Sea security history from 1853-56, Crimean War between Ottoman Empire and Russia, or focus on Black Sea geopolitics by the collapse of both Russian and Ottoman empires at the end of the World War I, and attempts to remap security in the region, or have a fast-track historical time travel and arrive 2008 when Georgia-Russian war broke out, or Russia's annexation of the Crimea in 2014, where global European attention supposedly refocused on the strategic significance of the Black Sea, and finalize Black Sea geopolitics debate after Russian invasion of Ukraine and its attempts to extend its influence on Black Sea. Whichever date and the event you pick up for the launching pad for the analysis, Black Sea geopolitics is a quite important security issue currently. And its historical crisis and hotspot in the current debates, it has a direct ramifications on Aegean and Mediterranean seas. It is directly shaping Southeastern European geopolitics, directly affecting Turkey, and lastly, it's a kind of battleground for global actors, mainly the US. Today, we are having an opportunity to listen to three well-known experts on the issue, and I extend my gratitude for them being here and also for the Romed ISPI giving us this opportunity. Today, we have Natalie Sabanadze from Chatham House, Chiara Lovotti from ISPI and Romed Dialogues, and Galip Dalay from Oxford University. Natalie, if you like, let's start with you and let's focus on the elephant in the room, which is Russia. What's the meaning of Black Sea for Russian security and geopolitical ambitions? Is a standard question, and it's a quite important question. What's Russia's aim for the Black Sea? And could you put it in both historical and current affairs context? And in the second round, we may focus on competing actors on the issues such as EU, NATO, and Turkey. Yes, floor is yours, Natalie.
Thank you very much, Taha. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm glad to see so much attention on Black Sea security for perhaps wrong reasons, but I think it's overdue. As you described, historically, it has been a very important region in terms of different influences, crossroads, etc. So I know I have little time, and I would like to make two big claims, which I will try perhaps later to unpack a bit more. So one point that I want to make is that the security environment in the Black Sea region, the way we have now, has been shaped by the interaction of three main factors. One is Russian revisionism. Another is insecurity of post-Soviet states, littoral states, which largely has been created by Russian revisionism. And the third factor is the weak Western posturing despite its growing presence. So these three factors have really determined the environment that we have now, the security environment of the Black Sea region. Another point is that the way things evolve right now in the Black Sea region, we can see, and I think historically it has also been the case, we can see that it is like a microcosm a micro-theater of ongoing and fast-evolving global geopolitical competition. And I will name a few factors that today characterize Black Sea region. And I would say that these are very much reflected at the global scale. One is geopolitical fragmentation of the region, which is happening. Fight for territorial sphere of influence. Fight for dominating energy and trade routes. The rise of middle powers as increasingly consequential players in international relations, decline of multilateralism and rules-based interstate relations, hybrid and conventional warfare, both taking place, and the Black Sea region, the changing nature of the naval warfare, consolidation of the Western Bloc, together with weaknesses that we see. So I think this is the factors that I could very briefly point out and say that what they are very much present in the Black Sea region, and they really reflect what is happening at the global scale. Now, to unpack some of this from the Russian perspective, as you have asked, first of all, Russia has a very strong sense of entitlement to the Black Sea that is historically determined. And it considers itself as a great power. And for this great power status, Black Sea and the domination of the Black Sea is absolutely essential. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia felt significantly diminished in the Black Sea. It had basically control of only one small part of it, which was along the Krasnodar region. And given that it is very important for Russia for its status, but also for projection of power, not only in the region and in the immediate neighborhood, but also beyond in the Mediterranean and the Balkans, there was an urgent need to restore the kind of the sphere, expand the sphere of its domination again. So one way to do it, the way Russia went about doing it, was through basically destroying territorial integrity of some of its former subjects. It started with Georgia. In fact, it started already in the 90s with the war in Abkhazia, but particularly was sort of like finished basically in 2008. Then Crimea, 2014, and then finally a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, 2022. This was not only a way to expand territorially its presence and dominance. There is a de facto statelet, which is Abkhazia, that has only been recognized by Russia. A return of Crimea as a base, which is very important for Russia historically, and it's like the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet. But also it was the way to keep NATO out of the Black Sea. Basically 2008 promise was derailed perhaps forever until we see a new development with the war in Georgia and later in Ukraine. However, Russia felt that NATO was expanding in the Black Sea despite it not being officially expanding. Apart from, we knew that Turkey was a long-standing member of the NATO, and there was Romania and Bulgaria, but the other candidates like Georgia and Ukraine that wanted to join, Russia's feeling was that non-military presence of NATO through engagement and deepening of cooperation with the states was really growing. And they were particularly worried also, they were following quite closely the growing military cooperation exercises, growing interoperability between Georgian, Ukrainian, and NATO forces, participation of both Georgia and Ukraine in KFOR, ISAF operations in Afghanistan, Ukraine's participation in I4 and S4 in Bosnia-Herzegovina, Iraq, Afghanistan again. So all these missions that both Georgia and Ukraine took part were seen as an example of NATO's kind of unofficial expansion in the region. So the response that they thought was absolutely essential was strengthening of Russia's naval presence. There was a big emphasis on modernizing and rebuilding Black Sea Fleet, which was largely still had the kind of Soviet black ships, and we see that now with the Ukrainian offensive, how much it has suffered. And that is one of the points that I mentioned about the changing nature of the naval warfare with the drones. So strengthening was important, but at the same time, return of this idea of footholds, going not only in the Black Sea, but beyond, and particularly in the Mediterranean. So it was very important for Russia's sort of global engagement to gain bases, including naval bases, outside, so that to kind of create a joint force posture. Interestingly enough, NATO and EU's presence in the Black Sea has not been that great. I mean, you can say it was always peripheral to looking at it from Brussels. There is no NATO strategy for the Black Sea. Well, the US is now developing a strategy, but EU had something which is called Black Sea Synergy, which was pretty unambitious project-based approach. Despite that, Russian perception of the Western presence was probably disproportionately higher, and the response was also quite strong. So final point, then I finish with this, is that this kind of pushback from Russia, which mainly manifested itself on pressuring littoral states, including Moldova, Caucasus, Ukraine, created an incentive for these states to seek protection and actually try to get to the NATO, which was kind of an unintended consequence of it, which led to further fragmentation of the region. And now we see all these elements that have been put in place years ago really coming to the fore in a most dramatic way with the war in Ukraine.
Thank you, Natalie. I mean, we will follow up where you left actually, and to see the other side of the bank, which is European Union, NATO, and the US and the Turkey. How do they pursue, and do they really have a strategy, a feasible strategy for the Black Sea? I mean, it's not quite different than Russia actually. When you evaluate Europeans and the Turkey, how they treated Black Sea geopolitics and security for years. Chiara, if you like to join us, and we would like to have first a historical and the current geopolitical importance of area. We would like to hear from you, especially for the EU. Definitely you'll cover US and NATO, but maybe in the second round, we would like to see how do you see things from the Italy's perspective, which is in the Mediterranean, and we call Mediterranean also in Turkey as a White Sea and the Black Sea. We are at the middle of these two seas. But let's start with this historical and the current geopolitical importance of the Black Sea from you.
Yes, thank you, Taha. And as you said, as Natalie so brilliantly introduced us to the Russian perspective, I will probably try to focus more on the European, US and NATO perspective, so to say the Western perspective, if you like. But first, let me start by saying that to connect with what you said, Taha, there is much interest and much talk lately around the growing importance of the Black Sea as a new geopolitical spot, a new security complex. But actually, of course, the Black Sea has been prominent, let's say, in global geopolitics for centuries, as you said, for, of course, its strategic location as a sort of connector between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, but of course also for its resources. The Black Sea region is particularly rich in hydrocarbons, oil and natural gas, but also minerals. And of course, also for centuries, it has been a real crossroads of different cultures, histories, populations, of migrations as well. And then, of course, the Black Sea area is a strategic hub for energy traffics and for its growing military significance. And here, I think you can really see the interests of the different international powers, the different stakeholders at play in the past and right now. But speaking about today's dynamics, for what concerns concerns energy traffic. So energy, as you know, of course, major pipelines and shipping lanes cross the Black Sea region, transporting oil and gas from the Caspian area to Europe. And in fact, the EU, the European Union as an institution, but also European countries have a great interest in the Black Sea as this really critical corridor for energy resources that can also reduce their dependency on Russian energy supplies. For instance, I don't know, initiatives like the Southern Gas Corridor aim to bring the Caspian gas to Europe via these routes. And so this area is really crucial to European interests, for Europe to diversify its energy resources and to take some distance from Russia, especially in the post-February 2022 context. So energy, one of the main pillars why the region is important. And then, of course, as I said, there are major military concerns. The Black Sea is a critical area for NATO in particular, and its member states, especially the US, not only the US, but also the US. And it is critical, particularly because it is a strategic spot, as Natalie was mentioning, where to counter Russian influence in Eastern Europe. Countering Russian influence in Eastern Europe may sound like a too much of a Cold War lexicon, perhaps, but it is what it is. And it is no coincidence, for instance, that the Black Sea is home to several key naval bases of Western allies, because really the control over this region, or let's say the attempts to try to guarantee security in this region, and having the foot in this region is really offers to the countries and interested significant military and strategic advantages. One, of course, as I mentioned, is the US. The US maintains a strategic military presence in the area. It conducts joint naval exercises with NATO partners to ensure security of the area, and NATO indeed plays a crucial role in the Black Sea by acting as a security guarantor for its member states and its partners in the region. NATO's actions include several activities like enhancing aerial and maritime surveillance, for instance, but also conducting regular patrols and exercises to deter what are the threats in the sea and the region, and ensure navigation of the sea, for instance. So a lot of collaboration with NATO members, but also NATO collaborates with non-member countries in the Black Sea region, countries such as Ukraine or Georgia, for instance, and it has been doing so for a long time. And this cooperation is aimed at building defense capabilities and modernizing military capabilities of these non-NATO countries in the Black Sea region. This cooperation also includes things like training, equipment provision, and logistic support. And in fact, non-NATO NATO actions have been seen by non-NATO members in the region as a real show of support, as they're seen as they boost their defenses against potential aggressions, especially from Russia. So energy concerns, security concerns, primarily, but let's not also forget that the EU, the US, and NATO members also share concerns of a more political nature, if you like, when it comes to the Black Sea region and its peculiar geopolitical position. The EU, for instance, engages with Black Sea countries through the so-called Eastern Partnerships, the EAP. These are a set of initiatives promoted by the European Union that are meant to foster political stability in the region, to support democracy and democratic institutions, and also, of course, to boost closer ties with the EU itself. So again, energy concerns, military concerns, also political concerns. And of course, as Natalie was saying, there is a complex, this complex set of dynamics is somehow connected by one clear common denominator that is Russia, or as she was saying, Russian revisionism. Russia's presence in the area is really what is moving things in the Black Sea right now, and recent historical events have demonstrated that clearly. I think first came the Russian illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014. That event had already altered very much the geopolitical landscape of the Black Sea, because of course it had expanded Russian territorial control. It had given Russia greater military leverage in the Black Sea, including the control of the Sevastopol naval base, which is a critical military infrastructure. And then second, of course, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, that has really transformed the geopolitical and security dynamics in the region, impacting, as you know, on several domains and fields. On the, let's say, economic sphere, of course, trade and shipping have been disrupted, and the Black Sea region's role as a critical energy transit area has been complicated by the Russian conflict in Ukraine. But the greatest impact, I think, especially when it comes to European interests, is certainly the military, or maybe not the main, but one of the main ones is the military and security domain. Clearly, the overall security environment in the Black Sea since Russia's invasion of Ukraine has dramatically deteriorated, with increased risks of military confrontations and incidents. Clashes between Ukrainian and Russian forces have increased. But most importantly, to sum up, perhaps we can say that there has been an increased overall militarization of the area since February 2022. Not only Russia has strengthened its naval capabilities in the area, but of course NATO, and this has prompted NATO and the Western allies, let's say, response, and they have also increased surveillance and patrol activities in the region. NATO members in the region, also including Romania and Bulgaria, have sought stronger military support from the alliance, and this, of course, led to a general more robust collective defense posture of the region and in the region. So I think to sum up, to conclude, what is worrisome is that this trend towards militarization is growing, is not going to decrease, is going to increase. And of course, also that this overall instability of the Black Sea area does not only affect countries bordering the Black Sea, but also it relates and it is of interest to the entire European continent.
In this second round, I hope we'll talk about the larger ramifications of the geopolitical results of what you just pictured out. I mean, from energy to militarization of the Black Sea. Galip, if you like, you can just present the case, but mainly about Turkey, which I would like to ask you, because when we are talking about Black Sea, it's not the story only belongs to Russia. The other part of the story is mainly Turkey. Historically, I mean, the latest war, I mean, Ottomans had was the raid on Russian Black Sea naval bases on 1914. Since then, we had a kind of status quo with a fragile nature. But historically, the Turkish position should be put into frame with the long history of wars with Russia, which is 13 wars, except the last 3 happening last 10 years, from Syria to Libya to Karabakh, through proxies. Within this context, how do you put Turkey into Black Sea geopolitics?
Well, thank you very much. I think the question is very pertinent, because the Turkey for a long time had the idea of creating some form of regional system, regional order in the Black Sea, premised on the idea of the regional ownership. And that effectively means the regional littoral states being able to talk to others, speak to each other, and cooperate with each other. That also means Russia being part of this system. With this invasion, obviously, this regional order premise on regional ownership idea is no longer valid. Instead, we have a regional bifurcation. On the one hand, you have Russia, and on the other hand, you have the other littoral states, and quite many of them is part of the Western economic, political, security ecosystem in one way or another, either through the NATO membership or the EU membership or the NATO or EU aspirations. So what you have right now, as I indicated, and as also Natalie mentioned in her remarks, a region that has been significantly ruptured, and where you see the Russian occupation zones, Russian zones of domination and occupation has been increasing from the 2008 Georgian War, the Abkhazia to Crimea to the current invasion. This is one picture. The other picture is the region is gradually but surely being integrated into the Western political, economic, and security ecosystem, as you have the 3 NATO members, 2 NATO aspirant states, and as you have 2 EU member and 3 EU candidate or aspirants in the region. But the Turkish idea of this ownership, order through ownership, has been rendered void with the Russian invasion. Second, in the Black Sea, the Russia is a country with whom Turkey for a long time had to engage in, maintain working relationship, functional relationship. But at the same time, it's a country that needs to be balanced, that needs to be, so to speak, subject to self-containment, but balance probably is the right word. Counterbalance probably is the right word here. And in this imagination, Ukraine has quite a central place, because recently there's this idea that Turkey has good relation with Ukraine and Russia at the same time, but we have to make distinction. Turkey does have close relation with Russia. The President Erdogan, President Putin has very personal bonds, but let's make no mistake. This close relationship is premised on the geopolitical incompatibility and on the security incompatibility, particularly the geopolitical incompatibility, because Turkey and Russia are on the opposite side of all the major crises in their broader shared neighborhood, be it in Syria, Libya, Nagorno-Karabakh, and Black Sea. Whereas Turkey-Ukraine relationship, I will not define it as close relationship, rather than this is a strategic relationship. The most important manifestation of this, the fact that there is a significant level of defense industry cooperation between the both countries, and this is quite crucial in this relationship. So this is not just a relationship of one side selling drones, the other side buying it. This is a defense industry cooperation of very significant level, and the reason for this is the geopolitical compatibility in both actors' aspiration, particularly when it comes to Black Sea, where neither side wants this region to be dominated by Russia. So that's quite significant, as you also rightly put it. The historical imagination of the Turkish elites, not only from the Republican era, from the Ottoman era, is the suspicion of Russian geopolitical ambitions. The suspicion of Russian revisionism is very significant and has a very central place, and counterbalancing Russia through different alliances, through different blocks, has been a very significant element of this policy. And that takes us actually to the broader question of the European security, because the Black Sea, what's happening in the Black Sea very much shows how should be the nature of the European security debates, because the Black Sea security is effectively about the European security as well. So the Black Sea is not an faraway place for Europe. The many European countries, the EU member states, EU candidate states, are part of the Black Sea ecosystem, and that means the Black Sea security is effectively European and EU security. And that also shows how should be the nature of the European security debate. It should not be only contain the actors at the EU member level, because that will be a very skewed idea of the European security. That should include actors that are that have a stake in the European security. That includes the major actors of the Black Sea, be it Turkey, be it Ukraine, but also the aspiring countries like Georgia and Georgia as well as part of this debate. Another things that also another thing that this episode is showing, the interconnection between the Black Sea and Mediterranean. And again, in the European, Turkey, Russia interaction triangle, Europe, the Black Sea and Mediterranean are not separate zones, but rather they're single zones. And when formulating foreign policy or when formulating the security policy, this should have the two legs at the same time, not only the Black Sea legs, but also Mediterranean leg, because in 2014, the Russia illegally annexed Crimea, but in 2013, Russia established the Mediterranean Squadron, through which it projected power in the Mediterranean, not only in Mediterranean and Middle East and North Africa, but through this also to Sahel. So this is Mediterranean is the interconnection between Middle East, Europe, Sahel, but also through Turkey, the Turkish Straits. It's also very interconnected with Black Sea. So therefore, that also takes us once again to the European security debate, both for its southern neighborhood and eastern neighborhood. The European security debate needs to expand and open up its horizon and include the main actors of this era that are not currently EU member.
Galip, thank you. I mean, let's go back to Natalie. Natalie, as you completed your first presentation, I just said, I mean, let's check also the other side of the aisle. How comprehensive and confident you see European actors and the US-NATO approach after the invasion of Ukraine to produce a tangible, solid geopolitical and security approach towards southeastern Europe and the Black Sea?
Thank you very much, Taha. I don't see it yet, but I think there is clear prioritization of the Black Sea region for obvious reasons. Black Sea became, from periphery, basically traveled to being central to European security. And there's a question here too, also very important for transatlantic security. Now, one of the reasons why it has been, and I think still is quite difficult to come up with a very strong joined up kind of strategy is twofold. One is different threat assessments from various countries within NATO and the EU. And another is this variable geometry of the region that Galip referred to. So you have Russia with its ambitions, you have this unrecognized state of Abkhazia, you have Ukraine at war, Georgia, which is an aspirant country, both Georgia, Ukraine, EU candidates, and then you have Turkey, which is a NATO member, and then Romania, Bulgaria, which is both EU and Turkey and NATO members. So it's disjointed by nature. So in this, before you have the consolidation, a real consolidation of the Western Bloc within the Black Sea, it's going to be quite difficult to come up with a strong and comprehensive strategy. However, I think it is absolutely essential and it should be broad. I think given the variable geometry, the transatlantic cooperation, so NATO and EU working together to strengthen both protection and deterrence in the Black Sea is important, and also looking at beyond, the importance of it beyond, and Galip mentioned this kind of one security region, which is Black Sea going into Mediterranean and then even the Sahel. I mean, for Russia, one of the reasons why it is so important is that Russia wants to challenge Western domination, not only in the Black Sea, where it's hard to say whether there is real domination because it is pretty contested, but also elsewhere. And for this, it needs to create kind of pressure points. So Eastern Mediterranean is a very good place to put one such pressure point, particularly Libya and Syria, and then further out in Sahel, where Russia is gaining foothold. So pressure points and footholds are a big part of its approach. So in many respects, this needs to be factored in when NATO and the EU come up with a joint approach. One thing that Russia is worried about is the cooperation between allies among the NATO littoral states. And this recent agreement on demining between Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria was received with a lot of suspicion. It's a very good move. And I think that Turkey here has a pivotal role, and it is very important to kind of build on this and have more and more initiatives that include cooperation of existing allies plus candidates of the EU, this kind of taking into account this variable geometry in order to strengthen deterrence in the region. And I think it's a long-term perspective, but there are a lot of layers and a lot of sort of security, different dimensions of security that need to be factored in. I didn't mention, I sort of mentioned in passing hybrid, but I think that's also very important because through Black Sea, Russia also looks at the Western Balkans. And, Europe, NATO, the transatlantic sort of alliance was seen the value-based community as well. And this is from this area that Russia is sort of trying to undermine the consensus around the values. You see growing influence in Western Balkans, influence through Republika Srpska, Serbia, Hungary, Slovakia, to a degree Bulgaria. I mean, what is happening in Georgia right now is also part of this strategy of sort of expanding ideological influence and doing it closer to the countries, to the EU and NATO, because this is also a way to undermine them internally and through aspirants and candidates.
Thank you, Natalie. Chiara, can we move to you and also pick up the latest analysis from Natalia, which is pressure points Russia is either popping up or starting in various regions. And Mediterranean is one of them, and Italy is over there. Could you just give us the perspective from Italy? How do they see it as a connecting points? Since also there is a question from the viewers. Actually, Natalie answered one of them, the transatlantic one. And I'll be happy if you can also touch that issue. By this way, we could answer the question also.
Of course, Taha, thank you for your question. As Galip said, the Black Sea is not some place far away from Europe and for our country, Italy as well. So it's evident, it's clear that Rome actually has several strategic interests in the region. And these interests and also the way in which Rome acts when it comes to the Black Sea align pretty much with the interests and actions of the EU allies and the NATO allies. And they are also actually often pursued in practice in coordination with the EU policies and NATO strategies. What are these interests? Again, of course, energy routes. The Black Sea, for instance, is a vital route for pipelines like the Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, the TAP, which is, again, a part of the southern corridor we mentioned earlier that brings much of the gas from the Caspian Sea to Italy. So it is vital for Rome that these energy transit routes remain safe, they remain secure and functioning. Then, of course, there is an interest in safeguarding energy projects and investments. Italy energy companies, for instance, such as Eni, are involved in exploration and development projects in the Black Sea. And these investments are essential for Italy, again, to secure its supplies, especially at this critical time. Let's not also forget that the Black Sea region is a significant market for Italian trade in goods and services, and then of course, again, the big issue, and there is much alignment in that as well with the EU, the US, and NATO allies, which is the fact that Italy shares an interest in that the Black Sea does not fall under Russia's increased control and action and influence. And clearly, for all these reasons, Italy is working to strengthen the security and stability of the area. As a NATO member, Rome supports the alliance's efforts in this regard. And as a European member state, a EU member state, Italy, of course, supports the EU efforts to promote stability in the area and democratic governance, etc., etc. Italy is also very much interested in, especially with the current government, in taking up a more and more prominent role in everything that relates to Mediterranean security, and of course contributing to stabilization efforts in the Black Sea area is very much connected to that. Of course, the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea are connected by a very strait, the Bosphorus Strait, so they're very close, and interests are really connected.
Thank you, Chiara. Galip, we don't have much time, but there are questions. At least I would like to forward one of them. The Syrian war, how it is connected to the security of Black Sea. As I just said at the introduction, Turkey is squeezed between Russian invasion of Ukraine and the tension spilling out of this invasion, and already another invasion taking place in Syria. The first question is this one. The second question, if you can just touch on with a couple of sentences, and you will be having total 2 minutes, which you mentioned European security debate. How serious you think there is such a debate, while looks like most of the countries, Turkey, Europeans, and the US, having an overlapping and more or less a sharing interest vis-a-vis this issue? You have 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Well, very briefly on Syria. In Syria, the three major actors, let's put aside Syria, US at this stage, the three major actors are Turkey, Russia, and Iran. These are three major Eurasian actors. So therefore, these actors are very consequential and influential in the other parts of the Eurasia, be it in South Caucasus, be it in the Black Sea, be it in Central Asia. The nature of their relationship in one context condition the nature of their relationship in other contexts. For instance, whenever Turkey thinks about its policy in Black Sea towards Russia, it has to factor in the fact that it is facing Russia in other conflict zones. The Syria is the case in point, but also the Libya as well. So therefore, the fact that Russia is very much one of the primary actors in Syria is a factor that Turkey has to factor in while formulating its policy in elsewhere. Second, we have been discussing about the European energy security after the Ukraine invasion. And one country that is a Mediterranean country that is rich with energy sources is Libya. The fact that Libya is not utilized to its fullest extent as it could have to reduce the European energy insecurity is that Russia is in Libya, is in eastern Libya, is a major actor there. So it is preventing quite many of these initiatives that would reduce the European energy dependency in this sphere. And very final point, I know that I'm over time. The Mediterranean, the Russian presence in Mediterranean, because Syria is a Mediterranean country, Libya is a Mediterranean country, the Algeria, this is an area that Russia utilized very significantly to keep the major leverage points with vis-a-vis Europe in particular, because this is an area that basically poked the European security or insecurity. And that's why we mentioned the European security debates. Right now, the need for a serious European security demand is very significant, but the nature of the European security debate that is taken at the EU level is not very serious in a sense. Yes, I mean, with the uncertainty of a Trump return and its implication on NATO, the European wing within NATO has become even more imperative. But this is a European wing, not an EU wing. So therefore, the European security cannot be just reduced to EU security, and it had to include all other major relevant actors. And there I see UK, Turkey, Ukraine as also crucial actors with which the EU needs to engage in a security dialogue if it wants to be a major security actor in its shared neighborhood.
Galip, thank you. Natalie, thank you. Chiara, thank you very much for being us and sharing your views. And I would like to also thank our host, Rommet, and the ISPI organizing this panel, and also our viewers. I mean, thank you very much. We wish to, I mean, had more questions for if we had a time, but just forgive us, and hope to see you in another event. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.